We now shift our attention to the town of Hempstead. Although Election Day is just over 3 months away, it's never too early to get to know the candidates. Hempstead Town Supervisor Don Clavin is seeking re-election for a second term. He will run against first-time candidate and Garden City lawyer Jason Abelove. We now have the pleasure of welcoming Clavin's opponent into the studio. He is an employment law and discrimination attorney, hoping to turn that title into Town of Hempstead Supervisor. It is Mr. Jason Abelove. Before we get to this interview, WRHU-FM New York does not endorse or support any candidate running in any political election. Mr. Abelove, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me in these beautiful studios.
We appreciate the compliment, but let's start with this. You've been an employment law and discrimination attorney for a quarter of a century now. Tons of five-star reviews. You serve people across Garden City and the New York City area. Can you tell our audience what is driving you out of the realm of law and into the potential leadership of the largest township in America?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, what threw me over the top was the town got $133.8 million in CARES money. And CARES money was federal money that was designed to give to towns. And it was a quirk in the law that the town of Hempstead actually got more money than Nassau County. And that aid was supposed to go to things to help keep stores open. And it was supposed to go direct support to people that were affected by COVID. And when the federal government gave the town that money, the only stipulation was, we don't want you to use it for things that are regularly budgeted. It's not supposed to go to your budget and your bottom line. What our town supervisor did and what our town board did is they took 3/4 of that money and they put it into town facilities. They did air conditioning in town hall and touchless toilets in town hall and just other town facilities and parks. Town hall was largely closed during that time. So while our businesses were shuttering across the town of Hempstead, we gave raises to Don Clavin's friends and political allies. We fixed up the town facilities, and we used it to help plug holes in the town budget. The exact thing we weren't supposed to do. These kinds of problems have to end. We have to bring transparency and fairness. The other part with the CARES money and the town in general is the money is never distributed in an equitable way. You know, we're here in Hempstead. That money doesn't come to Hempstead. That money goes to where Don Clavin's political allies are. I'll give you another example. Every school district got the exact same amount of money, $150,000. Where you have larger school districts, the per student amount of money received was much lower than in the larger districts. So in Hempstead, where the district was much larger, students got roughly 10 cents on the dollar to the smaller districts. So we need to bring transparency, equity, and fairness throughout the town. And I was fed up and had enough. And I wasn't morally capable to sit on the sidelines any longer. I had to step up.
Breaking down the funding that the town got from the federal's CARES, $70 million covered payroll, $30 million was put into grants for the hospitals, schools, and food banks and businesses. But elected Democratic officials questioned it. Why is that?
As I was saying, the one stipulation from the federal government was that we don't use it to give raises to our to people in our political party. Mm-hmm. We don't use it to plug holes, right? So we had storefronts shuttering all over the town. When Laura Curran and the county got that money, it was direct support to help keep stores open, to these mom and pop shops. When the state got its money, the same thing. It went directly to the people that needed it. We have students and seniors that have been severely impacted by the impact, not just of the pandemic, but of the social isolation. The stores needed assistance. That was the direct assistance that was supposed to happen, and it didn't. And our people in charge of the town put that money kind of in their pockets and didn't give it to the people that desperately needed it. And it's shameful.
And when you look at hospitals, schools, food banks, you mentioned all the inequities that came with that money, but how would you suggest that they split it up? Because it seems like something has to take priority over the other. So at the end of the day, it seems like that whether it's the school, whether it's the hospital, something's going to end up being taken priority. How would you suggest to split that up?
When you look at the town budget, the entire budget is roughly $400 million. So when 133.8 comes in, it's as found money, that is a ton of money. So there's a lot you can do with that. When you take 3/4 of it and put it in your pocket and don't give it to the people that need it, that's not how you split it up equitably. When you're giving money to school districts, you don't give the same amount of money to every school district, large and small. You give it on a per student basis. So the money's delivered fairly. The larger districts get a little more than the smaller districts because we're providing students with the ability to keep going to school remotely. That's the point of supporting the schools. We make sure that private schools get funding, right? I mean, private schools, Catholic schools, Hebrew schools, religious schools, they got zero of this CARES money. They needed to stay open also. That, to me, is more important than fixing up facilities in town hall and plugging budget holes. This was an emergency. We needed to treat the people fairly, and we didn't. This town dismally failed.
And those factors led to you obviously running for supervisor. And you said in a podcast that sitting on the sidelines was, quote, a morally untenable. It was an morally untenable position. So tell me, paint that picture for our audience of what your vision of Hempstead looks like if you were to be elected.
Yeah, once we're elected, the first thing we want to do is bring transparency to the town. Right now, people feel non-empowered. They don't really understand how their money is being spent. And given our way to use technology and the internet, there's no reason for that. You should be able to go online and see the entire town checkbook, where every penny is being spent, where every contract is coming from. I'm going to pledge that, indeed, that any town vendor that gets a contract from us, we're going to put on the website whether that vendor is a donor to any of the town board members. So you know who's getting that contract, whether they're the best bid, whether they're donating to a particular campaign. Light is the best antiseptic. Like, how do you fix the ailments? You show it all to the public, and the public can see everything. And by having that transparency and openness and the political will, not just to help our friends, but to help the people that need the help the most and deliver the town services in an equitable manner, that's what I intend to bring to this town.
Publicizing checkbooks and publicizing donors, you're very optimistic about it, but do you see any downfalls of it? Do you see it impacting the town of Hempstead in any negative way?
There's nothing negative about showing the public how we're using its money. The money that the town has is not the town's money. It's not the supervisor's money. It's the people's money. So showing people how their hard-earned tax dollars are being spent, there's no downside to that at all. It just ends political patronage and kind of the secrecy of how the town currently runs. There's only upside to it.
And when you look at the term private donors, I mean, for lack of a better term, it seems like it's being thrown out of the window. How you look to tackle if donors want to now back out because their funds are now being publicized?
Well, in terms of, there's no such thing as a private donor. So in other words, every 3 months, I have to file with the Board of Elections a list of every single person that donated money, how much they donated, the date they donated it. So that's already public. What I'm saying is take that already public information and compile it in one source. So if I give Yao Corporation a contract, the public can see, boy, there were bidders that were underneath Yao. Why did he give it to Yao? Oh, now we see that Yao might have given $1 million to Jason's campaign, right? So let the public see that, and that's how you root that out, because then the public can do something about it. And you should be fired if you're, and I'm calling on Don Clavin to be fired for basically helping those that donate money to him over the public in general.
And we want to just to shift the attention away from Don Clavin. We want to talk about what you could bring to the table, not to, attack Don Clavin in any way. But Deja, continue with the next question.
All right. As we continue the conversation about money, can you talk to me about you refusing to take money from selected groups? Do you think that has an impact on the goals for your campaign?
No, I think, again, our entire town slate has pledged not to take any money from people that work for the town. It is a conflict of interest for me to go to my employees and say, you have to donate money to me. Or maybe it's just a felt pressure that if they donate money to my campaign, then I can help them get raises or promotions or different jobs and move up in the town. These are civil service jobs. They earn those jobs through a competitive civil service process, and the best person should be getting those jobs. So by, again, taking the pressure on the rank and file town employees to donate to a political candidate in order to advance their careers allows them to work in peace, do their job, and the town gets the best person for the best job. It's only helpful.
And before we let you go, why do you think you are the right candidate for Town of Hempstead Supervisor?
I'm so happy you asked that. I mean, first of all, I'm a discrimination lawyer and have been for 25 years. So I know inequity when I see it. And when I look at how this town is run, it is run in the favor of those that are privileged. And when you look at our town slate, none of us are professional politicians. We are boots on the ground. We work in the community, and we're here to serve the people. We're not here to serve those that donate money to us. We're not here to serve those in a certain political party. So I think we are best suited and have the political will and desire to just deliver the highest quality of service at the most efficient price to our town stakeholders.
This is Jason Abelove, an employment law and discrimination attorney, hoping to turn that title into Town of Hempstead Supervisor. Before we end this interview, let me remind the listeners again, WRHU New York does not endorse or support any candidate running in a political election. Mr. Abelove, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.